Managing ADHD can be tricky and also extremely unique depending on how your ADHD decides to present itself. One of the ways social media has really benefited my life is all the tricks I've learned from it on how to manage my own ADHD. So thank you to all the creators out there who have shared their tricks and tips. And today I wanted to share with you the top 5 tips I have found that help me with my ADHD and managing it, especially on a day-to-day basis. If this is our first video together, my name is Claire. I am a content producer professionally and a content creator for myself for fun. On my channel, you'll see some videos that help you with your content creation, but you should also expect some personal things and life updates, planning the weeks, routines, travel vlogs eventually if I ever edit any of my travel footage. Because we're talking about ADHD, I do also want to give you a little bit of a background on me and my journey with ADHD, because I do think that is important, especially because of how unique it can present itself from person to person. To keep this to the point of giving you tips about managing ADHD and not my history, but again, I do think it's important so that you know how to relate this to yourself based on your history. Let's go over a few key details of my past. When I was a child in the 90s, I wasn't diagnosed with ADHD. I was diagnosed with what they had called more of a hyperfocus, which, to be honest with you, with the ever-changing world of ADHD, ADD, and all of those things, it really just comes down like ADHD is kind of changing to hyperfocus. So it's just all over the place. In my early 20s, I was also reconfirmed to have ADHD, though they never mentioned a specific form of hyperfocus. So it's just whatever. Yeah. Funny little backstory. I had such a hard time switching tasks with ADHD. That's where the hyperfocus part comes in. I was such a hyperfocus kid. I was actually kicked out of 3 preschools, kindergartens, preschools. 3. Because if we were doing like a math sheet, I actually do remember those, at least at one of them. If we were doing a math sheet and I did not finish that math sheet and it was time for recess, no, it was not time for recess. I was finishing that math sheet. So that was probably really fun for my parents to manage at the time. So that's how it presented itself as a young child. But the kicker, the most important piece of my history with ADHD is that I am diagnosed OCD as well. Those two balance each other out. It is incredible how much my OCD reins in my ADHD. I really don't know how people with ADHD manage without OCD. It kind of blows my mind. That's a huge note to take into consideration. The tips I am sharing today still really apply to the ADHD side of things and are really the things the OCD could not rein in, that I had to figure out how to deal with without it because the OCD just gave up. So with that history, let's get into what the video is actually about today and my top 5 tips for managing ADHD. Tip 1, transition time. If you struggle with transitioning from one task to another, or you find you fall behind on that daily schedule that you plan out somehow without knowing where the time really goes, I do too. And I love planners. So I love scheduling my day out. For a really long time, that became extremely toxic because I was always behind. Then I changed one thing. I don't know what the catalyst for this was, and I don't know when I started it, but it was quite some time ago, and it has been absolutely amazing since. But I plan transition time, literally write in transition time in my planner. Between tasks or errands or whatever is on my schedule, I will usually plan some form of transition time, which I've learned where and when and how long to make those transition times depending on what it is, because I've been doing it for a really long time now. But if you are struggling with transitions and you want a suggestion, start with about 15 minutes between things and judge it from there. Coming home from the grocery store, you're going to need a little extra time because you've got to put all those groceries away. Give yourself time for that transition and then getting to the next thing. But on the flip side, when I transition from my sitting desk to my standing desk so I can do my little walking treadmill, that doesn't take 15 minutes. It usually takes 5 to 10. It shouldn't take 10, but there are times where ADHD, you just need some transition time. Really, this is just giving yourself tiny little breaks and gaps of time to catch up. I actually learned this in film school when I started down the path of a first AD, a first assistant director. That's the person that keeps you on schedule. I remember sneaking in a few extra minutes here and there, knowing when we'd be falling behind and knowing that that would allow us to catch up because we didn't really need the time. Anyways, that was manipulative. It's not really manipulative to do it to yourself. It's kind. If you struggle to transition with ADHD between tasks, between events, or between whatever, and especially if you use a planner, physically plan in transition time, write it in. It's amazing how much it's helped me actually get more done. I just thought of a few more tricks, but we're going to write these down for a different video. And on that note, if you have any tricks you want to share in the comments or anything like that, I'd love to know, because, maybe we should start a series of ADHD tricks and tips and everything, because there is always something to learn from one another. Tip number 2 is a fun one, but I feel like a lot of people with ADHD that I personally know do this already and love it. So let's talk about it. Having a spot for your not ready to wash, still can be worn, but not quite clean clothing. Mine's actually in this drawer right here. I don't like using hampers for that. One, I don't really have the setup to have like a lot of hamper space, and hampers are something I've gone in. My OCD took over the hamper situation. So that's a whole other video. So no more hampers. So I needed some other situation. Thankfully, I have a lot of hanging closet space and I prefer to hang my clothes. So drawer space was free. So I have a section of my drawer specifically for clothing that can be worn again, but does not deserve to be with the clean clothing quite anymore. I really like this trick because and this is where the OCD comes into play a little bit with this one, I cannot have a messy room. I am not one of the ones with ADHD that can have piles of clothing. Also, why the hamper situation is as crazy as it is as well. I need to have a clean and tidy space. I will procrastinate by organizing and cleaning. So having clothes on the floor does not work for me. I need to have it hidden in a way. So there's that. If you are an ADHD person that is totally fine with having clothing on your floor, little jealous, because again, I procrastinate through putting this stuff away when I don't have to sometimes. That's kind of the conclusion of tip 2. Find that space if you need that, like I do. Tip number 3 is for the ADHDers out there who really like to overwhelm themselves and then freeze. Or are in a really busy spot of their lives, have a lot to get done, and are also frozen because of that. I have one specific example I'm going to share, but I encourage you to use it as inspiration and find other ways to use this tip throughout your life, especially to manage your ADHD. And that is to systemize. Also, if you stick around for tip number 5, it'll help you utilize this if you're feeling really lost about how to systemize or where to systemize. Very simple way I have systemized is my morning skincare. I have my products lined up from the first one I use to the last one that I use. That way I don't have to think about it. I just go down the line and it not only is really satisfying, but for some reason I never followed through on a morning skincare routine until I did that for myself. Simple way of systemizing. A more complicated way, it's not complicated, but definitely unique way of systemizing is my to-do list. Because I've stopped using a piece of paper. Truly, it was just so many thoughts about what I had to do. So instead, I've moved on to a sticky note method where I've color-coded sticky notes and I'm using my whiteboard to move them around and help me focus on tasks. Let me know if you're curious about this because I think it's revolutionary. Absolutely love it. Don't know if I'll ever go back to using a whiteboard quite the same, or sticky notes. Very curious to see how long it stays. Let me know if you want to know more about that system. It's wonderful. Another system that helps me follow through on my goals is to completely prep everything I need for the gym the night before, which I have created a very strategic system down to stacking my clothes and how I get dressed. The OCD plays a part in that one as well. Those are only a few of the systems I have in my life. I can only imagine if I really sat down and thought about how many I have, how many I could come up with. Take that as inspiration and don't forget to stick around for tip number 5. Yes, I'm baiting you. I know. Okay, it's fine. I want watch time. I'm a YouTuber. We can be honest with each other. Oh, speaking of that, I should probably mention, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you like this. Tip number 4 might be my favorite one and the one I repeat most often in my head. I saw this quote on social media and it really did change my life. And it is probably the first tip I ever give anybody who tells me they struggle with ADHD, especially if they struggle with clutter and ADHD. Don't put it down. Put it away. I cannot tell you how many times that plays on repeat in my head daily. but it's been life-changing, especially as someone who procrastinates with cleaning and organizing. I can't if I'm always putting things away. And you know what else it helps with? If I put something away and I hate where I put it away, this kind of calls that out and allows me to say, this home for this needs to change. Again, does not allow me to procrastinate and spend a whole day exploding a room and then, well, it's a weekend. Because you explode the room the first day and get overwhelmed. And then the second day, you try to put things back enough that you can live again. But this system has been life-changing. I do not know who originally posted it. I see it all over social media now. If you have not seen it yet, that would be shocking to me. Do not put it down, put it away. Which also means if you really struggle with clutter, you need to take some time to figure out the homes for everything. And this is where my balance of moving 3 times in the past year and a half really helped, but I minimized the amount of stuff that I owned. I also came up with a rule. If I did not have a home for it where I lived, which again, moving 3 times really helped because homes change so frequently for my stuff. But if I didn't have a home for it, I really had to decide, do I need it? And I will tell you, I don't remember anything I got rid of. If you're just hearing this quote, or if you've heard this quote but don't know exactly how to implement it, that is how. Find homes for the things that you have, and then when you use them, put them away. And don't break the rule. Don't put your keys down. Put them away. Don't put that dish just down. Put it away. Sometimes it requires a bunch of hand wash though. Like you can let that build up for a second because I like to hand wash a bunch of stuff at once. Not over days. We're getting into a different subject. Let's move on to tip number 5 and the way that it'll help you figure out mostly tip number 3, but it'll also kind of help tip number 4. So let's get into it. My 5th and final tip is interesting. It is to do some self-reflection, especially because ADHD presents itself so uniquely with everyone. It's extremely important for you to know about yourself before just taking anyone's tips and tricks on the internet, including mine. Before you take just anyone's tricks or tips, reflect. And specifically for ADHD, I think reflecting on your strengths and your weaknesses, especially around ADHD, is very key to figuring out what it is you need to work on. I've mentioned a few of my major weaknesses, like procrastinating through organizing or cleaning, as well as taking a long time to transition. But I've also mentioned my strengths. While my strengths are organizing, so I can find homes for everything, so I can put it away when I want to, and holding myself accountable because my OCD has to control my ADHD. OCD is a strength when you have ADHD. That's what I gotta say. There are a lot more you can go into analyzing. And to be honest with you, the thing that helped me really realize what I was good at and what I was not good at was just paying attention to myself throughout those times when I was extremely irritable and frustrated and not really feeling like I was accomplishing a lot. What was I routinely doing or not doing? And when things felt like they were going really good, when I got into that flow state, what was I doing? By going through quite a few of those ups and downs, but taking time afterwards to analyze them really helped me figure out what those weaknesses and strengths are. I am sorry that is not an easy do this, and by the end of that 5-minute exercise, you'll know what it is. It is living life, going through those and self-evaluating. If you do want a workbook to work on this, the only thing I found close to it is this shadow workbook that was super popular on TikTok, I think a few years ago. And the one that I bought, you can't even buy anymore because it's like 4 times as thick and seems a little bit more aggressive. Like it has a lot more information. I'll see if I can find a link and I'll leave that below. But if you get nervous from the phrase shadow work or it seems too woo-woo for you, just know it's not this crazy mystical stuff. You're not going to get into a weird cult or anything by doing that. Shadow work is evaluating negative emotions and feelings. That's it. And trying to figure out where they come from so that you don't continue to feel them. It's nothing crazy. Really helpful. There's also a thing called light work that nobody talks enough about. And I will be making a video about it at some point because I love it. And it's the opposite of that. It's figuring out what is the positive side. Anyways, it's wonderful. So tip number 5, to summarize, evaluate your strengths and your weaknesses and see what it is you can lean on with yourself and what it is you might need to support yourself with a little bit more. To build on a previous example of a way that my weaknesses and my strengths balance each other out, my weakness is forcing myself to go to the gym, forcing myself to go in public, but specifically the gym. My strength is organizing myself enough beforehand and being able to hold myself accountable because why'd I do all that work if I'm not going to follow through? So for the gym, my strengths provide a system to allow me to go to the gym. and not make excuses not to go. I mentioned this before, but I'll say it again. I think we can all learn from each other. So I'd love to know your tips in the comments below. Or if you want round 2 of ADHD tips, because I was able to create a little bit of a list while making this video thing. Okay, that, and anyways, I think my cat's at my door. Is there someone at my door? It's into music that isn't even there. Not a tip, but another ADHD thing.